Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a multifaceted professional from Seattle, USA, Mr. Al Shalloway. Al, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. Al is the founder and chief executive officer of Success Engineering. So, Al, before we talk about success engineering, a few questions for you.
Sure.
You worn many hats over the years as an educator, an author, a consultant, and a thought leader. What part of this journey has been the most transformative for you?
Well, I think to be candid, it's when I would teach things and realize I wasn't doing them myself.
Hmm.
Like I was teaching lean management and I was a horrible manager. And I
Mm,
noticed that. I
mm.
said, Al, you got to change. And that was not the only case.
Right.
When I was coaching and I wasn't a good coach. And I would notice if I'm going to teach it, I have to live it. And that just helped change me,
Hmm.
for the better.
Very interesting. And you've been at the intersection of agile, lean, and business transformation for a long time.
Yeah.
What
I'm
keeps you
sorry.
passionate even today?
Yeah, I have always gotten into wanting to learn. I
Uh,
come from a family of educated people, I suppose. My father was a doctor, one of my brothers was a doctor, my other brother had a PhD from MIT. I joke I'm the failure of the family in education. I've only two masters.
hmm.
So I've always liked learning. It's just even in high school I was learning. I was reading about AI as a senior in high school. Pat Winston, the AI lab at MIT.
Hmm.
And I think that's just it. I'm just an inquisitive guy. I pay attention to all sorts of things. I don't even really know why sometimes. I just
Hmm.
like doing it. So
Wonderful.
I've always wanted to learn, and I was fortunate. I had some business consultants in the 80s who turned me on to Deming. So I've been into lean or the foundation of it for 4 decades.
Amazing. Amazing. Let's now talk about success engineering. Um, for someone who doesn't know much about what is success engineering, tell me a little bit about it and how would you describe the Amplio expert system?
Yeah. Well, Success Engineering, actually, Tom Gilb gave me that name because he and I are good friends. We've known each other for a long time. We talk about once a week. He's in Norway, Evo, really brilliant man. And we were talking about what we need today is a way to engineer success. It's
Hmm.
not luck, and it's not just people. It is people, but it's also engineering.
Hmm.
So that's where the name came in. When I left the PMI, my wife kind of wanted me to retire. I'm 72, so I could have retired 3 years ago, but I said no. I think I think something new is on the horizon, and I don't think I'm the only one who can do it, but I see how to do it. So I decided I was going to get into this. And basically, in from like around 2005 to 2015, I had like 10,000 interviews
Wow.
with people. I went to conferences a lot and I
Hmm.
didn't go to the sessions. I talked to people and I
Hmm.
calculated it must have been
Yeah.
10,000.
Yeah.
And what I did is I looked at what worked and what didn't work.
Hmm.
And I kind of compiled that and I noticed the patterns that people did. And even if they used something that most nobody worked with, they added something. So it's like
Hmm.
I've seen people like successful as safe. So I said, well, what'd you do? And they would add something. Or like Scrum or all these different agile things. So I
Hmm.
felt that if we could characterize this, make it cognizant. And I have a lot of experience in patterns. I
Hmm.
studied Alexander, oh, who knows, in the 90s or before. So I knew there was a way to put it all together. So 3 years ago, I decided I was going to do that. And that's the Amplio expert system. But another piece, I've been
Hmm.
interested in blended remote learning
Hmm.
for like 20 plus years. I was doing it before COVID. I
Hmm.
thought that's you need to address the busy schedule. So
Hmm.
Amplio is a system based on what works.
Hmm.
So it is huge. People get intimidated by it's so big, but it has a way to take the kernel and teach it as simple as Scrum, if that's what you
Hmm.
want to start, and
Hmm.
integrated with it. And this is key, and I don't think people have paid attention enough.
Hmm.
Integrated with it is how to coach it, how to teach it. That's part of the Amplio system
Yeah.
is how to teach it and how to coach it. It
Hmm.
doesn't do any good if you know something and you can't convey it to somebody else. So I use all this learning stuff like the Toyota Kata. in the 80s, I started in curriculum and learning in the 80s. I have a psychology degree as far as being a heavy tech. So it really encompasses all of this.
Mm.
And it's a lifelong work, but I really love it. And I do it
I know.
because I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, no, no, and I completely agree with you. I mean, I'm 68 and I enjoy doing everything that I'm doing now,
Yeah,
with including my podcast. But
great.
moving on, Al, how does the system adapt to an organization's unique context, culture, and constraints?
This is a great question. So here's something else that's different about Amplio. It comes from core first principles. By
Mhm.
first principles, these are principles that just exist. You could think of it as the science of flow in a sense.
Mm.
So it's like delays cause waste. Delays in feedback. The essence of lean, which is where I really guess I got a lot of this from, is that
Mm.
if you don't get feedback quickly, if you're in a waterfall environment, then you make a mistake and all your inventory's messed up. So I don't come from practices. I come in building Amplio, I come from these principles, which means basically that it's adaptable anywhere. Now, that is a bit too abstract for people. Like lean thinking can go and work in any case, Amplio can go and work in any place, but that's too abstract. I think that way, and a lot of other people think this way, but most don't. So, what I have is a core set of things that are like the practices, but they're all presented as what I call like playbooks.
Mhm.
So here's the core way to do it. Here's the
Mm.
objective. And then you use these principles to contextualize it.
Mm.
And it has the ability then I can give you a full set already fully existent and say, here, do this, like Scrum says, use these practices. Now they're not totally set, but there's still some prescription. Or I could say, well, let's see where you are and let's adapt the practices with the playbooks based on the first principles that are
Mm.
present. That's a lean TOC flow thought process. And that's the other important thing. People are
Yeah.
important. That means you can't just say, here's what we're doing. Oh, do this. No, that doesn't work. Well, in some places, that is what you want to do. And in
Very
some
true.
places, they want to figure it out. So
Mm.
it's got all these
Yeah.
knobs and
Yeah. Yeah.
adjustments.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. But tell me, Al, do you see any disconnect between agile theory and business reality?
Yeah, actually, I think I see a lot. I never signed the Agile Manifesto,
Hmm.
and I never signed it because mostly of two things. And I knew what they were intending to do. I was engaged in the group. I wasn't there when it was formed, but 10 years later, I was invited back to the 10-year reunion because I'd done a lot of stuff with Kanban and Lean, and they recognized me for that. I'd gotten into the XP crowd in 99. So I know what the intent was, but I'm very
Mm.
hung up on the way you explain things. Because if you have good intent, but you explain it the wrong way, people take the wrong way. And you still
Mm.
see this. So systems thinking is missing. You can apply system thinking to Agile, but you have to bring it. But the Agile Manifesto is team centric.
Mm.
And the people over process, I know the intention because we were in this heavy bureaucratic, yeah, don't do that.
Mm.
But it should be we value teams and we value process that helps people. Or it says
Mm.
actually it's people over process. So those two to go together and business agility requires a holistic systems thinking perspective where you have to pay attention to the system you're in, the management style, all of that. And Agile doesn't address this. So it's not that it's inconsistent. What's the word? It may be misdirecting. That's a
Mm.
better way. I shouldn't say it's inconsistent, but
Mm.
my background's theoretical mathematics, so I'm overly
Yeah.
precise.
Yeah.
What
No,
can I
I'm with
say?
you. But
So I
my
didn't want to
next,
sign it because it wasn't quite right to me.
absolutely. Well said. Well said. But moving on, do you believe that a lot of the agile frameworks may be over-engineered, under-applied, or misused?
I don't think they're over-engineered. Safe
Hmm.
might be. There are underapplied and they're definitely misused. But the reason they're misused is again because what's Murphy's Law? If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. Well, here's a corollary. If anything can be misunderstood, it will be misunderstood.
Mm.
So too concise a description leads to ambiguity.
Mm.
So what we need is what's missing again is first principles, is clarity of purpose, is a focus on the business agility, which is valued as all stakeholders,
Mm.
not just users. So I would say it's under engineered mostly, and there's
Mm.
not an appreciation for engineering.
Mm. Well
That's
said.
why I have success engineering, because I think
Mm.
you have to focus on success
Yeah.
and you have to take an engineering with theory attitude about it. It's not
Yeah.
just empirical.
Well said. Great response. What is the first signal that tells you an organization needs a different kind of agile approach?
Well, I don't go in looking for agile. I go in for, are they effective?
Mm.
And what I use to judge their effectiveness, and this may seem simplistic, actually, it
Mm.
almost seems simplistic to me,
Mm.
but it's more abstract. There are two things I look for. Do they know what value is? And a lot of times they don't.
Mm.
And that requires knowing your critical stakeholders. It requires knowing what your strategies are, what I call the strategic pillars, what you're up to. And
Mhm.
the second thing is, are they paying attention to delays in workflow and feedback?
Mm.
Virtually all waste comes from delays in feedback and workflow and value delivery.
Right.
For example, think of waterfall. Waterfall, you work real hard here, then real hard here, and real hard here, but the delay from here to here for any one
Mm.
part is long. The delay for feedback is you've got this massive amount stuff. The delay feedback is huge.
Mm.
Agile is all about lowering the delays. Agile is
Mm.
all about creating value and focusing on value. Agile is all about that, but it doesn't give you enough explicit techniques to do it, and people don't figure this out. I
Mm.
remember studying Deming in the 80s, and it seems so natural to me now. But I got to admit, I remember when I was studying it, I was like,
Mm.
what is he talking about? Don't motivate people. It didn't make
Mm.
any sense to me. But I finally understood the importance of systems that
Yeah.
motivate and demotivate. Pay attention to that. So it's not obvious how this works. Other people have done it, so you can take it as an example, but it's not obvious.
Amazing. You focus a lot on flow and value stream thinking.
Yeah.
How can
Well,
organizations shift from siloed outputs to system level flow?
the thing to do is to not see. I use flow as a tool, not
Mm.
as a goal in and of itself. It's an indicator.
Mm.
The way you get people to focus on flow and value streams is you have them focus on value delivered.
Mm.
And what you get them to see is you have to be able to see what's going on to be able to improve the flow and the value. And to do
Mm.
that, you have to see where's blockages.
Mm.
Now, theory of constraints is an example, but I use theory of constraints as one piece. Sometimes you can see a constraint and it
Mm.
makes a difference, but it's a focus on value. And you talk to people, okay, what's your most important thing? Can we get something done quickly? Well, how do
Yeah.
we get it quickly? Well,
Mm.
you have to avoid blockages. You have to avoid delays. You have to look at how the work gets handed off. And I talk about what causes delay in value delivery, and it's handoffs, it's rework, it's creating waste. See, this is what most people don't recognize.
Mm.
Your capacity is kind of fixed. You got so much effort you can do. So are you going to spend it on useful stuff, or are you going to spend it on a combination of useful stuff and wasted effort because you had to rework things,
Mm.
because you had slow delays, and because you created all this waste. But I will say one other thing, and
Mm.
this was interesting. I used to use value stream analysis a lot.
Mhm.
And what happened is, as companies got bigger, I could not get the time to do proper value stream analysis.
Mhm.
Some people can, and I applaud them. So I don't hear anything I say as saying anybody who spends a lot of time doing value stream analysis, that's a bad thing. That's a good thing. I just could not get those contracts.
Mm.
I don't know how they did it. But
Mm.
what I did discover is by analyzing value streams, by looking at the expert systems I saw people did, I discovered what I call competencies.
Mhm.
About They're about 80, they're about 50 of them, and they're what most of them are needed by most companies.
Mhm.
And they're all based on the value stream. They're different. It's like a jobs to be done. This is what a company has to do. And I look for those mismatch. So I look value and delays, but then I get more into it and I look, are they working on the smallest thing, or about a dozen things? They're 50, but they're a dozen to start with. So I look for those, and if those are problematic, I know I need to fix those. No, these are not practices, these are
Mm.
intentions, objectives.
Mm. Mm. Amazing. I've also often heard that it is very important to have the right kind of culture
Yeah.
in an organization if you want to adopt a robust agile framework. What are some of the biggest pitfalls if the culture is not right?
Well, it depends what you think culture is. And I'm not going to give you this is what culture is
Mm,
because there are different views and I respect the different views. But I'll tell
mm,
you how I look at it.
mm,
Um, I look at culture as a reflection of the management system. I did not come up with this. David Mann, in his book,
mhm,
Creating a Lean Culture, talks
mm,
about this. He said, culture is a reflection of management. He does not mean managers. He
mm,
means, is it safe? Are you focusing on value? Are you rewarding people? So what you want to do is not try to change culture. First of all, you tell people you're trying to change their culture, you might
mm.
upset them.
Yeah.
But it's not a changing culture. It's actually how do you make the work and the way the work's managed and the way people feel in the work, how do you make that better?
Mm,
And this is, again, if you're consistent with the lean theory, flow, theory constraints, it gets better. It just
mm,
does. If you start getting people working together and avoid multitasking and avoid working on too many things
mhm.
and too much at once, it just gets better. So I focus on the work and the
Yeah.
culture follows the work.
Mm, mm,
I forget his name now. He said something very interesting. He said it's easier to work your way into a new way of thinking than think your way into a new way of working. Sorry, I forgot
mm.
his name. But
Amazing.
that's the issue. You
Correct.
work together, that creates trust. You don't make trust and then work together. You
Yeah.
work together.
Yeah.
That creates trust.
Absolutely right. And what is your view on the role of psychological safety and team dynamics when
Okay.
you're wanting to implement change?
So this is something I studied in the 80s with a gentleman, Fernando Flores. He's actually was an expatriate in the United States from Chile. He's since gone back.
Hmm.
Brilliant man. And he was studying neurophysiology back in the 80s. Jose Maturana
Mm,
was one of the people he studied. And he talked about, I've given it a name, but I learned this from him, what I call automatic and interpretive reframing, what Kahneman might call thinking fast, this automatic stuff. What we have to recognize is yes, there is safety. You can get fired. There is fear. There's all that stuff. But what you also have to notice is how are people reacting to this? See, I think the biggest fear is between your ears. That's the source, is your own thinking, your ego. It's like when we go in, we talk about job descriptions, right? Well, I also talk about ego descriptions.
mm,
In other words, what's the ego description of a developer? What's the ego description of a manager? What is that conversation? And you have to pay attention to that. And if you don't pay attention to that, you can maybe make a safer organization, but it's not going to do you as much good. But there's one other piece here, and this is key
mm.
with systems thinking. One of the keys about systems thinking, this was Deming. Deming basically said that the errors you had were due to the system. Now, he said like 94% of the errors, but so what if it's even the person is at fault? Well, how did that bad person get into the system? That's part of the
Right.
system,
Mm,
which means when errors occur, you don't go blaming people. You
correct.
go look to see what is causing it in the system.
Yeah.
So now you create safety because something happens. You don't say, "Oh, I didn't do it. It was the system." You don't do a Bart Simpson on me.
Correct.
But but you see how we can all work together. I messed up. Okay, but here's what happened. And
Mm,
it's not me messing up. We can all work together to improve the system, and that makes safety. So that's
mm.
why another reason systems thinking is
Amazing.
so important.
And can some of these principles be applied in the more general functions, if I can use that term, like human resources or marketing in organizations?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, so again, see, this is one thing where people get a little confused. So lean came from the Toyota production system, which is manufacturing.
Mm.
But in the same way, you wouldn't say gravity is about apples,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that gave him the inspiration. So the Toyota production system created a way to use systems thinking from Deming, attend to flow, attend to quality, attend to just in time. But those concepts, they're first principles, they
Mm.
apply everywhere.
Mm.
Lean has been used in hospitals.
Yeah.
I went into a hospital once and I was shocked. They were doing things that are lean that I'd never even thought about, but I
Mm.
could see they were attending to reduce delays in waiting,
Right.
all sorts of things that lean tells you to do. So this is important. You really are coming not from applying Agile somewhere. You're saying, here are first principles. How do we apply them in knowledge work? Here are
Mm.
first principles. How do we apply them in software? Here are
Mm.
first principles. How do we apply them wherever it is? John Seddon, he's a Brit, I think. He's got the Vanguard group. Brilliant. And he talks about this all over the place. And
Mm,
he uses lean everywhere.
very interesting. I'll have time for two more questions for you.
Sure.
My next question is, how can organizations measure the success of their agile transformation beyond velocity or story points?
Well, first of all, I can get you to go twice as fast, just like that, if you're
Mm,
measuring velocity and story points.
mm,
They're unitless measures. Just say everything takes twice as long as
yeah.
just change your unit of measure.
Mm,
Velocity and story points. I've been meaning to write this. When they first came out, they were very useful, but they were only for the team to
mm,
use to see how much they thought they could get in a sprint. And it
correct.
was like yesterday's weather. And somehow it's gotten to be um, it's gotten to be about, oh, more story points, more value. No. So first of all, I like velocity and I like story points, but not for value. That's
Mm,
just an internal measure to see how much you can get the next sprint. You need to find what value is. And if you don't know what value is, then you can't measure it.
mm,
And the first thing is to quantify value so you at least know the direction you're going. Now,
mm,
there is a metric if you want one metric that sounds too simple to be valuable, and I didn't
mhm,
come up with this.
mm,
Our president, when I was at Net Objectives, I learned a huge amount from him.
mm,
Uh, Alan Chattalawada's name, very good consultant.
mm,
He was amazing. And one of the things he said, the best metric is how many deliveries do you have? And I said,
mm,
Alan, that's just too easy to game. And then I thought about it. Wait a moment. If you go from delivering 6 times a year to 12 times a year to 24, you're going to do better because you're getting smaller and getting incremental value and you're going to get more
mm,
feedback. So
mm.
if I had one metric, simply it would be the speed of delivery, how often you deliver it. And then
Amazing.
you'll get feedback to improve. It gets you
Yeah,
on track.
yeah, absolutely. And my last question for you, if you were to distill all your experiences into one core belief about effective change, what would it be?
So maybe this is arrogance or maybe this is optimism,
Mm,
but don't ever believe limitations.
mm.
Don't believe, I mean, and I don't mean it in an arrogant
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have been on projects where I've told it's been impossible to do
Mm,
it. And
mm,
now some of them I was in charge of, and one of them I was the grunt programmer. But my first job at IBM, I was temporarily assigned to IBM Research as a grunt Fortran programmer.
mm,
And we built something, I had nothing to do with the intelligence, but man, I could program quickly, so they loved me there. But the guy who did it, he was basically, we were doing something that predated neural nets, and we built something that we'd been told was impossible to build, and we did
mm,
it.
mm.
And then from there, I just have never accepted other people telling me I can't do it. I remember
Right.
John Mellencamp is one of my favorite artists, and his English teacher said he would never amount to anything, and it always irritated me. I
Mm,
hate being told I can't do something.
mm,
So my thing is don't ever accept other people's limits on you.
mm,
And if you're breaking new ground, then be clear why. If it's
mm.
arrogance, you're that's not good. That's pride.
Yeah.
But if it's because you want to make a difference,
Mm,
then don't accept other people's limits. It's like, the people who are saying you can't aren't being listened to by the people who are too busy
mm.
trying. It's
Right.
the, what was the guy who said the athlete in the arena, the man in the arena? It's like they're the ones, the sweat and the grit.
Mm,
And I would say that's the thing. Don't accept
yeah.
limits and keep your cool and keep your passion and keep your vision. That's my
Wow.
goal. It's like
Wow.
Churchill said this best in a commencement speech: never, 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 never give up. And
Mm.
sometimes
Amazing.
I have to remind myself of this in the
Absolutely.
morning. It's like, I'm tired.
Absolutely. And on that note, and your very powerful pieces of advice, one is don't accept other people's limits and never, never,
Yes,
never give up.
that's
Thank
right.
you, Al, for speaking to me about your own
Oh,
journey. I thought, the way you so simply covered difficult topics of agile and lean and transformation
right.
is a great 101 for a lot of my viewers and
Oh,
listeners.
great.
Thank you
I'm
again
so
and
glad
good
you
luck
had
to you.
me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.